Welcome everyone. A Monday morning again, a wonderful time to have a grad chat program again. My name is Rachna Muddagouni. I'm the CEO at the Graduate Students Association at the University of Melbourne. So today we have Madeleine Johnson, the GSA's council member and currently the General Secretary of the organization, having a chat with us about her journey as a leader, supporting the council's governance activities. And before I start, I would like to start the program by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land of the Wurundjeri people, and of the Kulin nations, and pay my respect to past, present, and the emerging leaders, and acknowledge and respect the Aboriginal and the Torres Strait Islanders. So welcome on board, Madeleine. It's lovely to have you on board.
Thank you, Rachna.
So really, it's such a great opportunity to talk to you about I wanted to talk to you about your leadership journey at GSA, and just to kind of understand how you got onto the GSA Council, what's the journey been like, what you've learned, what you're carrying forward with you. I understand, it is also the year where your term is coming to an end, and so. Talk to me a little bit about how did you get interested in participating and becoming a member of the GSA Council?
Yeah, that's a great question, Rachna. So I first became involved in GSA in December in 2018. So it was shortly after I'd started my master's program. And I also did my undergraduate degree here at Melbourne Uni, and I'd been involved in a lot of clubs and societies. And sort of involved in, running activities and events for students. And through that, I'd really developed an interest in advocacy and sort of an awareness of issues that affected students. And I wanted to help make a difference. One of the things that was really close to my heart was I was a maths student. And as I started my degree, I was really passionate about the lack of other women who were in my course. I think I remember walking into my first lecture as a master's student and just seeing one other woman in a whole lecture theatre. And just sort of being appalled by this statistic. So for me, it really came from a place of wanting to make a difference. I had a few people who I knew through my undergraduate experiences who were involved in GSA, who sort of, recommended as an experience I might enjoy. Then in December 2018, a casual vacancy came up. So that's when a councillor resigns mid-term. And through that casual vacancy, I was elected to a position as a general counsellor. That was a really great experience to understand GSA. I think I remember coming along to my first day and walking around the office at GSA, being shown around by another counsellor, and just thinking it was such a friendly and professional and supportive environment compared to where I'd, other leadership experiences I had in the past where I'd felt less supported. It was really fantastic to come along to GSA and see in particular how fantastic the staff were at helping students like me who are very interested in advocacy sort of, achieve their goals. They were very interested in hearing about our interests, who we were as leaders, and what we hoped to get out of the experience. Shortly, I think maybe a couple of months after that, in about January 2019, a position on the executive committee became available. And I was very keen to take on extra responsibilities and get more involved in all the awesome work GSA was doing at the time. So I stepped up to that, and that was sort of my first real experience of the level of governance that is expected of counsellors at GSA. So that was a really fantastic experience to start understanding. My previous experience was very much about how can I run an event or an initiative to address an issue that I care about. And getting involved in the executive council at GSA was more about how can I provide strategic advice, because the staff implement a lot of our events and our initiatives. How can we provide strategic advice and feedback and good governance to support the creation of all of these positive things that are going to impact students? After there, I was all in. So in the following election, I ran for election. I was fortunate enough to be elected. And after that, I was appointed to the position of General Secretary. So I've been in that position for almost a year now. And you're right, Rachna, it's a very interesting time to reflect on how things have changed since I started as General Secretary at the end of May in 2019. And it's just been a fantastic year. It's been an incredibly challenging leadership experience. There's so much stuff that I still feel like I'm learning something new every day when it comes to being Gen Sec at GSA. At every stage, I've felt really challenged by this position and been presented with a lot of situations where I've had to learn a lot of new skills and experiences in order to be able to, do the right thing by graduate students and keep GSA moving forward.
That's such a wonderful. Thank you so much for summarizing your introduction to GSA. So I may just kind of unwrap some of those questions I had in mind. So when you did you know a lot about what GSA did before you just came on as a council member in the beginning? Like, was it surprising to know that GSA was doing all these things, or did you do a bit of research about the organization before you put up your hand to come on as a casual vacancy, onto a casual vacancy?
So I'm not sure this is the answer you'll love to hear, Rachna, but to be honest, I think I didn't really know what I was getting into when I signed up at GSA. And I think, I sort of had a perspective as a member, coming on board, probably a little, I think this is true of everybody, it's very different to see what an organization looks like from the outside as opposed to being involved in the inside. And I think I did have quite a different perspective about the nature of GSA because I, spent a lot of time as an undergraduate at Melbourne Uni. I'd been quite involved in UMSU. And so that probably had shaped a little bit about my expectations about what I thought student associations did or what the kind of work that they did was. Yeah. I was probably, more... I think something that I really, really had to learn coming on board was that GSA has a very, very collaborative and strategic approach in its advocacy. And that was something that was definitely new to me coming on board at GSA.
That's so good to know too. I mean, I think as a staff member, getting feedback like that from you is a very good reflective practice for us to ensure that, the way we kind of promote GSA and so that people know what our organization is about, but also apart from the services that they can receive, that, I have found that it's a fantastic place for everyone to come in together and kind of explore their leadership skills. And it's like a place a house where you can rediscover yourself in a very supported environment. So that, I think even for me, my journey as a CEO in this organization is very different from what it was in different places. So talk a little to your initial first 6 months in the organization. You must have had to give up a lot of your own personal time and you were committed to this kind of trying to find this time to explore your leadership and be involved in an organization that, I'm just trying to understand the choices you make when you put up your hands to get on to being a council member.
Yeah. So interestingly enough, I've always really valued the opportunity to take on a leadership position while I've been at university. When I joined GSA Council, I was actually already the president of the Maths Student Society at that time. And I'd had a sort of leadership role in a few other organizations prior to that. And I was always very convinced that these sorts of opportunities, while they didn't, you didn't necessarily get much from them in terms of, you weren't necessarily paid, you weren't necessarily getting course credit for it. It was where a lot of valuable learning happened and where, you really had an opportunity to make a difference to other students' experiences. So for me, that's, contributing to the university life has always felt really important, and it's always been something I've prioritized. And I also want to contextualize that at GSA, we have people like me who maybe want to be involved in leadership positions in several groups at once. And we have people who GSA Council is one of the main things they're balancing along with their studies. Lots of people have very different priorities at GSA around leadership. So yes, it was a time commitment for me, but I think the hardest thing was sort of these governance skills that were expected of the counsellors, and being able to, I guess, and it was such an incredible opportunity to be able to learn that. So, you know, I didn't know a lot, for example, about financial management when I joined GSA, because I'd been involved in small student groups where we were managing, you know, a few $1,000s annually. But to come to an organisation like GSA, where every month we have the financial papers of a large not-for-profit, you know, being given to us, and we have to, you know, make sure that we're fulfilling our governance duties and reading these papers properly and understanding them. That was really exciting, but also really intimidating. It wasn't, you know, something that I'd seen a lot of before. And it was a really good opportunity to be thrown in the deep end and have to, you know, learn how to read a budget statement, for example, really quickly.
Well, that leads me to the next question. As you said, wow, you know, 12 months of this term has kind of just flown away, I'm sure, for you, because it's been a very busy year. What would be some of your highlights of, before we talk more about your Gen Sec role, just as a council member or being an executive within the GSA Council, what have been some of the key achievements, and you know, what you're really proud of and what you're leaving behind for GSA into the future?
Oh, that's several questions all rolled up in once. I think some of the things I'm really proud of achieving in this last year, and also the highlights for me, tie a lot into the people that I've been able to work with in my time at GSA. One of the things that I'm really proud of at the end of this year is the group of counsellors that we've had, of these 15 students who are very passionate, who are very engaged. And it's been, as a General Secretary, it's been a real privilege to be able to foster this community of engagement where all 15 of us, you know, are contributing, are very active, involved in all the life of the organisation. And that's, you know, been something that's been fantastic to be a part of. I think some of the other achievements we've had in the last 12 months, we celebrated our 25th anniversary in the middle of last year, and it was really fantastic to have this big anniversary lunch and meet all these people from this 25-year history of GSA and hear about how the organisation has changed over that time. It was also really fantastic that at the start of this 12-month period, we were able to pass a 5-year strategic plan, and that's really shaped this past 12 months. Is we've had this very cohesive and united sense of direction, and we have these 5 key priorities, and we've been understanding everything that we do in the organisation as to how it fits into these 5 priorities. So it's been really fantastic to have that consistent sense of purpose. And I think one of the final highlights of this year has just been the relationships that I've been able to build with the other counsellors, with the staff, with you, Rachna, and how much I've been able to learn from all the other counsellors. We've all come in from very different study backgrounds, very different life backgrounds, very different leadership styles and expectations. And working with this fantastic group of counsellors is always this incredible learning experience to understand other students' perspectives, what they think is important, how they want to go about achieving things. And then somehow out of that, uniting together to come together on collective action on important issues affecting students. That's just been such a fantastic experience.
Thank you, Madeleine. I think I share with you that the camaraderie and the cohesion that has been there in the council members to agree to disagree, to unite, to stand together for the cause has been one of the highlights, even for me, just to work alongside with you. So let's move on to your the role of the General Secretary. Actually, let me get the secret out. How did anybody, you know, canvass you and say, wow, this is exciting, take it up, Madeleine? How was that journey?
That's a very funny story, actually, because at the time, so the way that the students are nominated to the office bearer positions under the current governance model is the general election students vote, elect the 15 top students, and then when these students take their term, their first meeting, they have an election just amongst those 15 students to distribute the positions. So there's about a 3-week gap, or there was at least last year, between when I knew I'd been re-elected to the council and I had a position on the council, and when the actual vote was to determine who was going to be in which positions. So during the whole election period, I actually had no particular ambitions to take on a role that senior. I'd been on exec previously. And I was certainly interested in staying very involved in that sort of executive capability. But it was Emily Roberts who was who'd been around at GSA for a year by that stage, who we all sort of had this expectation she was going to put in a campaign for president, and were very supportive and excited by that. And she sort of asked me, she was like, Madeleine, do you want to come and be the General Secretary? And my first reaction was like, no way, I have no idea what I'm doing, I'm not ready, maybe ask me again in 6 months' time. And she was like, sure. And she left it there. And I think a few days later, she came back to me, and I'd been thinking about it. And my initial reaction was very much, I'm not ready for this, I don't have the skills. But I'd sort of reflected on it and was like, well, the position is not going to be there in 6 months. Someone else will be Gen Sec. So it's now or it's never. And I think, for me, I've often taken a lot of decisions this way. I've been a little bit scared by the decision. I've not been quite sure what to do. But sometimes for me, it has been about jumping in the deep end and saying, this is a huge opportunity. It's very intimidating, but I'm going to jump in and give it a go. Like, the worst thing I can do is I can have a go. So it was just in this very short 3-week period where I was managed, I was told, do you want to come do this role? I was eventually decided yes. And then I was lucky enough, I put a nomination in, and then 3 weeks later at the election, I was elected to the position of General Secretary.
Oh, wow. I must say, that convincing must have been a very interesting. I can always imagine the president trying to convince someone to get, particularly Emily, trying to get someone to, it wouldn't take her very long.
Yeah.
But let's talk a little bit about the Gen Sec role itself. Having worked with you, very unlike any other organization, it's a very hands-on job. And, sometimes it feels like when I see you work, it's a lot of about ensuring that we are meeting our legal obligations, we're playing by the books that's there. If you were to highlight what's been your Bible that you've always had to refer to and ensure that your rule book, I'll call it more the rule book, that has, guided your work?
Yeah, well, hands down the Constitution.
Okay.
So, the Constitution outlines in some level of detail some of the bare obligations of the General Secretary role. I've certainly spent many afternoons scrolling through the Constitution, frantically trying to reference something that was important to a decision we had to take at some point. So I think I've been very reliant on, the Constitution, our electoral regulations, our governance charter, all these documents that sort of have the things in writing. But beyond what's in writing, there's also this culture of mentorship and organizational knowledge that isn't always, ideally it would all be written down, but I certainly have learned a lot from working with Emily, who was in the previous General Secretary role, and also the General Secretary even before that, Georgia, who had left the organization when I came on, but still maintained a very close mentoring relationship with her, particularly during the first sort of 6 months of my term.
That's fantastic. So I think that, what you're trying to say is, yes, you jump in there without, it's quite scary, but I think putting the time, effort, your mentorship and the support that you get from the organization actually helps you explore this exciting role that's there. And let's talk a little bit about you executing the role. It's a lot of people relationship role, isn't it? In one way, it's about the connection, it's about getting people to help you follow the rules, but it's also, it's about the tight negotiation. Do you think your negotiation skills have developed during this period of time, or sometimes even the ability to take tough decisions? Can you talk a little bit about how it's helped you?
Yeah, so you're right, Rachna, it's very much a role about, every role in GSA relies on us all working together really well. But particularly the General Secretary role, a lot of what I have done is liaise with council, acted as a bit of a liaison between the staff and the council, doing a lot of updates and informational sharing, and sort of helping councillors take on different aspects of the work that needs to be done as the group. So that has always been about sort of negotiation and understanding how to work with other people. I think, getting something that's been really important to this role is the ability to get to know the other councillors, understand what their interests and their goals and their skill set are, and then figuring out how we can work together to achieve the best outcomes. So I think a lot of that has been about negotiation, and there's absolutely been a lot of really difficult decisions that we've had to take over the course of our year. There's a lot of responsibilities in these roles. And I think what I've learnt about taking these difficult decisions is, first of all, there's the very important understanding the different consequences and risks associated with, different possible decisions at any juncture in time. But also the importance of being able to take a strong decision. I think there've been a lot of lessons I've learned around this year around it's often really important for us to come together and, bring together a united front and be very cohesive. And the importance of, often there are difficult decisions and it's really hard to take them, but the risks associated with not taking a decision can often be greater than, taking any particular decision in a situation. So I think that that's been a real lesson for me.
That's fantastic to know. And as a young person or any person who takes difficult decisions, sometimes it does impact you personally, because you're actually taking a decision which may impact somebody's employment or engagement, or somebody who's going to be unhappy about that decision. How have you learned to kind of cope with that, those kind of emotions too?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think whenever we take these decisions, what's the most important thing to keep in mind is our shared values and our shared purpose. That at GSA, it's always about what is the best for graduate students, what is going to provide, them with the best possible service from GSA. And often that means making a really tough decision. When right after I came on board, my very first or second council meeting, we had to take a decision to adopt a budget that involved making redundancy. And that was an incredibly difficult decision to make for the council as a whole. And it just had to keep coming back to, well, we have to make the right decision by GSA. That's around ensuring our organisation is financially sustainable, that we will ensure, that GSA has the necessary finances to exist for years to come. And yes, it's a very difficult decision, and it's, not something anyone ever wants to do, but you always just have to bring it back to why are we here? What are we trying to achieve? And that is always to help graduate students.
Thank you, Madeleine. And Madeleine, I know we are very passionate about graduates. I know every conversation I have with you, which has been absolutely really a fresh, I would say, one of the things that kept me motivated is your passion for the advocacy for graduate students. So while you've had to do this administrative and a lot of organizational part of the work, how does this role engage still to be, being a good advocate? How have you done that and managed the balance?
Yeah, I think the first part of that question, how do we be a good advocate while, caught up in all these administrative tasks, is acknowledging that maybe my role isn't necessarily to be on the front foot of the advocacy, to be the person whose name is in charge of the campaign that we're running. It's often, to be a good advocate, sometimes it actually means supporting other students to advocate. And that's sort of been the position I've occupied this last year. While I haven't necessarily been in at the very forefront of GSA's advocacy activities, what I have done is supported the individual counsellors who are leading those initiatives. And I think, understanding sometimes it's not really in it to be personally the one responsible for the advocacy. It's to be there to help support the advocacy to happen, full stop. So, taking your own ego and wanting to be, very fancy and in front of everything out of it, I think it's been a really good experience to support other people to take up the spotlight, to take up the megaphone. And there's a lot of issues that I think, the graduate student community is so diverse, and there are so many advocacy issues that are important. And a role that, I've played as GenSec is often just supporting those groups of students to conduct that advocacy rather than being, involved in a leadership position in those groups. The second thing I want to add to that is I think advocacy or a passion for supporting graduates comes in through this sort of administrative task. And I think understanding how we administrate GSA and how the governance works, having a really good sense of advocacy is vital to that. I think I've learned a lot about how, our 15 councillors come from very different cultural backgrounds, and that's affected how they engage in advocacy and how they engage in governance. And when we govern GSA, we need to be really mindful of that. I remember having lots of conversations with our international officer, Ing, who was actually elected in the very same casual vacancy as me. And we had lots of conversations when we started working together about, she felt, differently about contributing to meetings and, sharing her opinion in meetings, and how we just had such different perspectives of advocacy and governance. So I think for me, it has been really important to be all these issues I care about supporting cultural diversity, about, supporting students from maybe disadvantaged educational backgrounds to participate. I think, there is an element of advocacy and being very mindful of that in how we conduct the governance of the organisation. So that was a very long-winded answer, Rachna, but the two things I think are, supporting others to advocate, but also including my passion for advocacy and how the administration happens.
I think it's beautifully articulated, Madeleine, not at all long. I think it just inspires me to understand that leadership is not just being right there in the front, it's actually supporting people to lead is a very good quality in leadership. And I think that's very well articulated by you. I think the other question, it would just not be fair if I didn't ask you something that you have led very passionately over the last 2-3 months, and that is the reform of the Constitution. And why was that so important for you? And what is it that actually brought that boost of energy in the last 3 to 4 months, and it's still continuing? Because I don't think there was any moment or second that you actually lost to contribute and keep it going. So talk us a little bit about that, Madeleine, the constitutional reform.
Yeah, so I think it's hands down the most exciting thing I've been part of at GSA, mostly because of its capacity to have an impact on the future of GSA and to really set GSA up for a really bright future. The project of constitutional reform, it started in about January, and I think, it was, we were all sort of getting our head around what a constitution was, what needed to be included, what needed to change. And I think, I'd sort of thought a little bit about constitutions before, having no legal background, but I had been involved in a constitutional reform project at the Maths Student Society, where I'd come at it from a perspective of gender equality, and I was able to amend the constitution to ensure we had a gender quota on our society's committee. So I think I had a little bit of an understanding of how powerful a tool a constitution was for ensuring advocacy, ensuring organisational sustainability going forward. Part of the reason I have always been so excited about this project, it's because it's the main tool GSA has to describe its existence, to describe its governance structure, and basically just describe how GSA operates in the world. So there's really been two elements to this process of constitutional reform. The first one has been, Rachna sort of mentioned this before, the GenSec role is around compliance. So part of the constitutional reform project has been around ensuring compliance with all relevant legislation. And, that's a very important and sort of thing to tick off the box. But what's been really exciting for me and what I've become really passionate about is thinking about the governance structure at GSA. So what's our governance model? How do we structure our committees and our positions to achieve the best outcomes for graduate students? And how do we represent GSA as best as possible? This has just been such a fantastic and exciting thing to be part of. I've had the opportunity to sort of get to know representatives from other student associations all around the country during this term. And I've been able to work with Emily Roberts, the president, who's a real expert in student governance, to sort of hear about all these different student governance models that happen across the country. This group has a board and a committee, this group just has one committee and office bearers, and be able to think about this question of what's going to be the most effective. How do we make sure the most students how do we make sure that students' voices are heard? How do we make sure that GSA is governed really effectively? These have been really interesting and exciting questions to think about, both for their own sake, but also for their capacity to have really big impact on the future of GSA.
Oh, that's fantastic. And thank you for the time. I however, felt that it's important, we will dearly miss you. And I think it is, you're leaving behind a legacy that I think any new coming Gen Secretary will really enjoy looking at the systems and processes and the values that you have operated within, and to kind of take it forward. But I guess that, as a CEO and the staff and the council, there would be something that you would like to leave a message for us into the future. And what would that message be from you, Madeleine?
Oh, you've got me on the spot here, Rachna, with
It
this
can
one.
just be something very simple, but I think it would be just fair for me to ask you that question.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a fantastic question. I think the most important thing we can do at GSA is to just really keep our purpose and our values in mind, and be willing to have the courage to take the decisions that lead towards positive outcomes.
I think, thank you, Madeleine. I must say, as the CEO who's worked under you, I have found it extremely, I feel very privileged to have worked with a young person like you, who has provided the inspiration, the guidance, the strong purpose and value, and your strong character to advocate for equity and equality has been so inspiring. And I think we are very fortunate at GSA to have you serve us as the General Secretary over the last 12 months. I definitely think that, your example of leadership would be very inspiring for people who are looking at GSA from the horizon and saying, how they can explore this role. So on behalf of the membership, the council staff, and all the volunteers and graduates, we thank you and acknowledge the time and the effort you've put into the organization, and particularly to your family and friends whom we have taken away a few of your precious time away from them. And we wish you all the very best into the future, and we hope to continue liaising with you even when you're not a member of the council.
Thank you very much, Rachna. And I wanted to add my own thank yous to that, I think maybe, I've certainly given some time to GSA, but I do really feel like I've definitely gotten so much out of this experience to be able to work with you and the whole staff team and all the other councillors. I really think I've been able to learn so much. I've been able to, it's an incredible opportunity to be given this kind of platform, and just an opportunity to make change in this kind of way. So I think I'm very, very grateful to everyone at GSA for supporting me through this experience.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll certainly miss it. I'll definitely enjoy having more time to finish off a thesis by the end of the year. But honestly, it has been such a fantastic year.
Thank you, Madeleine. We'll definitely be keeping an eye on all your leadership skills that I'm sure you'll find to explore in other organizations. So that leads us very well to talk about LEAD, which is the GSA's flagship leadership development program. It's a program that actually looks at how people can look at, everyone has a leader within them, and the opportunity of participating in the leadership program allows you to explore your leadership skills. It looks at also being able to ensure that the opportunity is given to everyone to look at, as Madeleine has highlighted in her conversation, that we all have different styles of leadership. We all have a different ability to demonstrate leadership, and the program just allows you to rethink the different perceptions of leadership. So GSA is really, really excited that this model was introduced in 2018. We've been very fortunate to have more than 100 students who have participated in the program in the past, and even though we are in the COVID-19 space, the program will be run in two phases, where a part of the program will be run as virtual programs, and some of it, as we move towards the end of the year, will be run as workshops where we can facilitate that in group activities. So it is actually a program that looks at a social model of leadership development, And the University of Melbourne has been very kind and supportive in funding this program. And over the next few weeks, please ensure that you are looking forward. We will be promoting the intake, that is, we'll be advertising for people to apply for the leadership program. The program helps to develop your own confidence and your own unique leadership style. It also looks at, you know, the strengths and weaknesses on how to articulate your value professionally and interpersonally. And it also looks at, you know, when Madeleine was talking about at being a good advocate, you know, how do you help others to drive their passion while you take your passion along? It's like channeling all your existing passion and purpose and looking at different steps that you can take to achieve those goals. I think some of these leadership programs and management programs, that skills that we offer, it's not only for your time at the university, it's for your career, it's for your life, it's for benefit to the community. So I cannot wait to hear, to receive your applications, which we will be advertising in 2 weeks' time. And on that note, I would like to say goodbye to and thank you to Madeleine. And I'd encourage all the graduates who are enrolled to definitely attend our AGM. That is on the 5th of June. And the information is available on the website. Don't forget to register. And thank you once again. And it's goodbye from us on Monday morning. Thank you so much. That was wonderful to have Madeleine talk to us. And we had a pre-recorded session for this morning, Monday morning. But I wanted today to talk a little bit about the National Reconciliation Week. For us, it is, as we know, that Reconciliation Australia announced, you know, we have the National Reconciliation Week that's coming up. It starts on the 27th of May. And the theme of the day is actually in this together. I mean, when I was reflecting on this, the theme, it's so appropriate because apart from, you know, what the CEO Karen Mundane said, that it's Australia's ability to move forward as a nation relies on individuals, organizations, and communities to come together in the spirit of reconciliation. And, you know, I think it's really important that each of us as a member of our community, we understand that we have a role to play. It's not somebody else's problem. It is, we have an important role to play. And it's when it's only, reconciliation can only happen when each one of us collectively endeavor to build the relation and the relationships and the communities that value the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders peoples' histories and culture. I remember a few weeks ago, I was talking to you about utilizing this time to talk about, you know, it's very important that the time that we've spent with the children and family to talk about our history and the importance of respect and valuing. And I think during this period of COVID-19, it's actually highlighted how the importance of mutual respect, the ability to understand the differences and the value of having differences, and how sometimes differences and diversity is our strength. And that by appreciating and understanding that, we are able to have a better future for all our Australians. So I think just to understand that in, you know, 2020 actually marks the 20 years of this operation of Reconciliation Australia. And a lot has happened. A lot has happened during that period of time. And Australia actually decided to celebrate the National Reconciliation Week from the 27th of May to the 3rd of June. And every day we will have a message or an activity at GSA that we would like to be promoting. And these dates actually has significant importance because in 1967, the referendum acknowledging the Aboriginal and the Torres Strait Islanders came into being, and the High Court Mabo decision respectively. So the National Reconciliation Week is actually preceded by the National Sorry Day, which is the 26th of May. So at GSA, we look forward to working with the University of Melbourne. If people have been listening to the Vice Chancellor's video every week, which he kindly puts together, there is a wonderful art exhibition that's happening. The information is on the website. There are many other activities that are actually happening at the University of Melbourne. So particularly Nikita's art, which will be actually showcased on a virtual way. It's please take the time to actually, appreciate the value of art which Nikita is presenting. And apart from that, I think it's very, very important. I've got Andrew Lee online today with me, joining me. Oh, wow, I've got a list here put together. I think tomorrow we have a session on the effective communication coming up, the part 2 of the session. And in that panel, we'll be discussing a lot about understanding the importance of, conflict resolution, negotiation, how to articulate effectively to a group. So I'm looking forward of running that session with Tavita and the content developed by Management Excellence. I understand that on pretty much on Wednesday, we have another beautiful session with Erica Freidenberg, who is going to support our parents who have a very challenging week coming this week. And that week is about really understanding that our parents are going to have, looking forward to having their kids back at school. I think it's a prep 1 and year 1 and the 11th and grade 10, 11 and 12 will be back at school, but sending them back to school and preparing the others who slowly will be returning back to school. So a bit of challenges to wean away your small children back to a school setting. So Erica will be helping us with that. And then on, again, on Thursday, we will have academic support that is, will be providing support to our graduates about how we prepare for exams in this kind of virtual land. So I think it's a busy week, but just remember that we still continue to have, different aspects of the social events. We have the Monday meditation sessions. We often have recipes put up on our website. So I think there are a range of other activities that are on our website. So I wanted to emphasize to you all that there is a 1-800 number, the GSA helpline. So please ensure that you do contact us when you're transitioning back into a less restrictive period where you may be having the challenges of preparing for your exam, trying to get back into a workforce, ensuring that your children are back in school. These are all challenging times. It's not only about, I think we still need to be respecting the social distancing, ensuring we play our part in keeping our community safe. But I think it's important to understand we have gone through nearly 8 to 10 weeks, or nearing 12 weeks of, being in a very different setting, trying to manage our life under very distressing circumstances for some of you, and trying to come back and getting into a routine can be quite difficult. And GSA will be focusing the month of June on focusing on how best we can support you during SWOT-WAC, in trying to prepare for your exams, getting your assignment and assessments done. Some of our researchers will be coming back to the university, and please look forward and talk to your faculty who can assist you in understanding what that plan will be. We had a fantastic session last week with Professor Steve Trumbull, who was able to talk to us about placements resuming for some of the medical students and what the plan for that would be. And our representation team will continue their advocacy work. So it's really important to understand that, you know, though we may think, wow, you know, the epidemic is away, it's not away. We still have to continue to ensure that we follow good public health guidelines that have been provided. We're one of the privileged countries that have a fantastic health system that supports us, and the value placed on public health. So we do need to ensure we do that. But just in perspective of, many people have asked me about what's happening at GSA, when are you opening the doors? So I just wanted to give you all a message that we will be working very, very closely with the University of Melbourne's return to the campus strategy. We'll be working alongside with them. Currently at Doug Mac, there is some renovation work that's happening. And because of, there'll be, you know, there is a change in the plan in relation to the new student precinct work. They've been able to complete a lot of work well before time, because, you know, there has been, students haven't been at the campus. So our ability to get back our front reception will be around the 15th of July. So slowly we will be coming back to the campus only by the end of July. And our conversations would be to consult with you, to talk to you, but our activities will continue online. And slowly we will be opening up in August the TSS spaces and the family room. But as you would appreciate, we have to do it in conjunction with the University of Melbourne, as well as the Department of Human and Health Services guidelines. So I still would appreciate if all of you can contact our 1-800-GSA helpline, visit our website, post us messages on web, Facebook, and we will be able to provide you with answers. I think just as a last plug-in, I request you all to, the enrolled graduate students, to register for the annual general meeting. It's a good time of the year to hear from the council who will be leaving us, and to hear about the work that they've done this year, to be looking at the financial statements of the organizations and read their report. But apart from that, also we have an exciting constitutional reform that the council have put forward for you as members to vote upon. So ensure that you do register it, because voting is allowed only for enrolled students who register through Zoom. So on that very note, I look forward to joining you tomorrow with the session on effective communication. So it is, I thank Madeleine, who was able to assist us with a pre-recorded session because she had commitments this morning. But I continue to look forward to hosting these programs every day from 10 to 11 with Tabitha Lisuma, the General Manager of Student Engagement. And goodbye, and have a beautiful week this week. Thank you.